We're going to take a look at Julie's swing compared to Jessica Mendoza on the right side of our screen. The very first place that we want to look where we're going to see a little bit of complications in the swing, if I just mark where the left foot is, or the stride foot, and if we fast forward through the swing just a little bit, we'll notice the stride is actually going to take place in a backwards position. A lot of times when kids do this, they tend to pop up the ball. And this is what we refer to as putting slack in the swing instead of tension and stress as we prepare to hit the softball. So let's go ahead and talk about the differences between Julie on the left and Mendoza on the right, exactly what they do a little bit differently, although they do start in a similar base and position. Julie's batting stance, pretty neutral right here. Not worried about that. What happens next in her stances or in her whole motion is what gets very concerning. If you look how she pigeon toes in with the back foot, sometimes this is a real common baseball type side effect that we look at with hitters, is that they want to try to teach a girl to turn her back foot in when they work with the softball player because they're trying to get the hips active. Now what I consider this to be is a forced reaction out of the back hip. Sure, we want to make sure that the back hip is going into rotation very strong. What we don't want to do is just force it to rotate without any momentum or any physics behind this whole move. The other thing we want to talk about is the concept of horizontal drive, meaning that we have four muscles or knee extensors that run up through the quad in this area right here. We actually have one that will attach itself at the hip, and if we can get a good ground angle here as we begin to make our positive move back towards the pitcher, then this back hip gets extended and is forced to contract and is forced to rotate. When the toe is in front of the heel, we lose the ability to keep this knee sideways, which does not allow us to actually get that good extension of the knee, which doesn't allow us to extend the hip and then go into rotation. So let's watch what Mendoza does a little bit differently from Julie. During the swing, you'll notice a couple of different angles right here. Okay, so we'll draw an angle from the hip to the knee. As she takes her weight into her back leg, we'll notice the hip gets on top of the knee a little bit more, but the knee never gets on top of the hip. The knee never gets on top of the back foot, which is critical to horizontal drive. The knee must stay inside of the back foot. So let's watch the reaction that Mendoza has as soon as the weight hits the back leg. And this is the farthest point here. Let's watch how the back knee will then drive, which will extend the hip, and you can watch this hip getting extended. And we'll even track this. We'll track the hip into the knee. And we'll just track it a couple of frames at a time. Look at how much the knee has begun to extend here. As that knee really moves inside of the foot, there's our good extension, and this is what allows her to actually make a positive move after her negative move. In Julie's case, if you look on the left side of the screen, as she sways back with her upper body, her weight goes over to a back foot that's already turned, which means the back knee is immediately going to turn here, which doesn't allow the knee to get extended whatsoever. So if we stop both hitters at their heel plant position here, look at the huge difference in the ground angle that's set. This means that the hip is extended. This means the hip is going to go into rotation very strong. If we look at what Julie's doing, there's not really a noticeable angle whatsoever on this swing, so that makes the front foot drop a little bit short on the stride, which puts slack in her swing. Compared to Mendoza, that's getting a lot of stretch and separation taking place between the hips and the hands. Even though the hands aren't making a strong move back or wrapping the bat, her hips are still going to work very, very strong during the swing. As we put slack in the swing, the other differences we'll see with Julie is that the elbow leads the hand instead of connecting together. Here you'll see Mendoza with the elbow and the hand nice and connected to the back hip. Everything's working pretty well in unison right there, which allows her to get on plane just a little bit better. The other thing about the pigeon-toed back foot is that really forces the heel to spin outside of this circle, which means that we're not turning our hips with our hips or our horizontal drive. We're just spinning our back foot, which is causing us to pull off the ball. The other thing I want to look at here too, against another hitter with the upper body, is I want to watch Bustos compared to Julie as well. I'm going to look at Bustos hitting a pitch that's down and in. If I take them both to heel plant again, I want to watch Bustos and her tendency to rotate the shoulders like a Ferris wheel. Now the shoulders are not rotating with the hips, they're rotating on top of the hips, but they're not rotating on the same plane. And if you watch Bustos here prior to contact, the back shoulder and the chest stay pretty much square to the ball. If we rotate the shoulders, we're going to rotate past the ball a lot. So if you watch Julie here, her shoulders are very, very flat right here. There's not a real big angle to them. And right here before contact, I'm just going to put a dot on the right shoulder. And watch the big move with the right shoulder all the way through here. That means she's coming across the ball pretty severely right there. And I think she's hitting pop-ups for two reasons. I think as that shoulder comes across the ball right here, it forces us to release a little bit too soon. And with her extension being low right here, instead of up and away more in this angle right here, that's going to force her to hit underneath the ball a little bit more. You know, if her extension were to be up here a little bit more, because that top, if the tricky thing about it here is that if her extension was actually facing up, she would probably be rolling over a lot of ground balls by swinging up instead of hitting fly balls by basically getting here and swinging down just a little bit. You know, so it's a process for her is going to be real simple to fix. I think what you've got to be able to do is understand that back foot's got to start straight. When you take the hip, as you load, the hip will get over the foot just a little bit, or get over the knee just a little bit. What she's got to do at this point in her swing is that she has to drive from the back heel to the back knee to the back hip, and that'll get her set back to where her normal base is with her feet. The other thing that's changing with Julie here is it's a lot of eye level changes, and I haven't seen a lot of kids do this, where they actually load at the same height. So here she is, what her negative move would be considered, and then let's see where she gets to when she hits. She's actually right in the middle and a little bit taller. So we're dropping down, standing up, and again, if the base gets shorter as we hit, then our height's going to get a little bit taller with the shorter base. So we got to make sure that she really understands that base has to get back to where it at least started. But this is typical load stride instead of take the weight into the back knee. Once it's here, drive in the other direction, and then your hands can get ready to hit the ball. Because you see Julie here, that when her front heel's about to drop to the ground, you'll see the back elbow dropping down as well. At this point, we should see the elbow work in the opposite direction, and Bustos is another good example of this. That's we drive into the back leg, we drive off of the back leg, and then as the back knee begins to move forward, the hands try to stay away from it, and it's not that she's just keeping her hands there, she's actively wrapping the bat a little bit, trying to get the hands away from the back hip at this point. You know, so I think a lot of it, the pop-ups are caused by the shorter step, because she starts wide and she steps backwards because of no horizontal drive or positive move off of the back leg, and at the same time because of this shoulder rotation happening right before contact, like she's throwing a big roundhouse punch, this is forcing her to hit the bottom half of the ball with a little bit of an early roll taken on during her swing.